Hi, Danielle from Design and Words, and I'm here as promised to help you make your Thanksgiving table absolutely awesome. So what we're gonna need is a couple of small pumpkins and then a hard-skinned vegetable of some kind. I think this is spaghetti squash. Feel free to write in the comments what it is. I just picked it because it had a nice smooth skin on it and it was perfect for writing on. So the other things we're going to need are a Sharpie, which I think most of you have at home. If you have a metallic pen, that's awesome. Any color will do. These, because we're going to be using them for shading, the ones with the finer points are better. If you have a larger Sharpie too, that's even better for my squash. And then if you have a chalk marker or a white pen, or marker I should say, felt tip, that will be great too. So come and join me.
Hi there, so here we are. I have my little pumpkin here and I've cheated a little bit and I've just done a little sample here on the one side using a black Sharpie and silver. Now I'm just using my handwriting as normal and I'm gonna walk you through it again and I'll do the other side of it. When you've got a little pumpkin like this, they're awesome, but they are a little bit rough on the surface. So if you have a Sharpie or even a thicker Sharpie, that would be great, but I would just caution you to go really, really slowly. So on this one, I'm gonna just do thanks, and I'm gonna do it in just a really classic sort of style of cursive writing. So just go really slowly and do your sample first, or do your kind of first lines. You don't want to make anything too thick and fancy right off the bat. Just get it on there. My trick is that I always go kind of freehand and then it ends up being a little bit crooked. But the good thing is if you're doing something a little bit creative like I am here, you can fudge it a little bit. So here we go. We're just going to do thanks. The bumpy surface does require you to go slow, but once you've got that on there, you can then judge if you need to, this goes up a little bit here, so I might draw that little leg down. And then I'm gonna go back and using our lettering principles, which I know we all remember, we are gonna make those down strokes. So anywhere where you draw your pen down, you're gonna make those a little bit thicker. So just color those in a little bit. Now for the sake of the pumpkin, because I'm using a thin Sharpie, I'm just gonna go over these thin lines as well, just a little bit, just to make them a little bit heavier. So all this does is it gives your letters a little bit more impact and a little bit more rhythm. So it looks a little nicer, it looks a little fancier. This is what I like to call faux calligraphy. So if you followed on my Valentine's workshop, which feels like a billion years ago, we talked a lot about this at the time too. So here we go, we're just doing the same thing. So we're making any downstrokes, so any areas where your pen goes down, like when you're shaping your A, your pen goes down here, we're gonna make those a little bit thicker. Same thing for this part of the end. We're gonna make this a little bit thicker. And you see how that's smudged up a little bit? Don't worry about that, not a big deal at all. We're gonna cover that when we do our shading on the back. Here we go. Just move our way through this. Now these, I've done this one as thanks, which you can use as a decoration on your table. But a really cute way to make place cards for your Thanksgiving table is to give everybody a little pumpkin with their name on it. So a bit like I've done my daughter's name on the back here with Mila. It's really sweet, and imagine those just sitting on the table on your place settings. Really, really sweet there. Okay, so we've got our thanks on there. Now give it a sec to dry. It will smudge a little bit if you go on to doing it right away. Actually, that dried really quickly, so we're in good shape. So I'm going to use an Osmer silver marker here to do my shading. I'll do both. I'll do a white chalk pen and the Osmer silver metallic pen. There's a bunch of different brands of these. This is just the one that I have on hand, so that's why I'm using it. So like any shading, we're going to pretend that the light source is coming from over here. So anything that's behind that is where the shading is going to be. So really easy rule of thumb is to do underneath, and just a really thin line along your letters, and on the right-hand side of any of your lettering. So right-hand side, underneath here, down to the right-hand side, and underneath. And when you look at this up closely, it's probably gonna look a little bit messy. Don't worry about that. The key is to make it a little bit thinner than what you're doing for the lines of your lettering. But if it doesn't look totally perfect, don't worry. Remember, people probably aren't going to be looking at it super closely, and the overall effect has a lot of impact. The metallic is really nice because it stands out and it gets a little bit of glitter, and you know, who doesn't love a little bit of glitter, especially on Thanksgiving? Well, anytime really. I mean, who's kidding who? All right, there's my email going off like crazy. This is what happens when you try to do stuff during the workday. All right, so there we have it. There is our thanks. So really, really sweet little place cards. You could do these on both sides. So you have the name on one side. You probably have to space it out a little bit better than I have it here. And then thanks on the other side. So both sides are visible from each side of the table. Now I'm going to switch over to my butternut squash again, or spaghetti squash. I think it's a spaghetti squash, but we're going to move on to this part now. Righto, here we are with my spaghetti squash. I'm going to use, you can see the sides are a little bit mucky, a little bit dirty, but so I'm just going to find the cleanest side here. And I'm going to write a little message on my squash. And I'm just going to do a give thanks message. A little bit of fun for Thanksgiving. You'll also notice I'm using a sandbag here, which is something that I used to use for engraving when I was making jewelry. However, not many people have these lying around. So what I would suggest is just take a towel, any old beach towel or bath towel, make it into a donut shape and place your item on it. All it does is it provides a stable surface for you to write on that doesn't jump around. Now, in this case, if you have a thick Sharpie, absolutely go ahead and use a thick Sharpie. It's going to be fantastic. I'm going to use a chalk pen, a Posca pen, just because that's what I have on hand. It's got a little thicker nib, so that makes it a little bit easier. So again, I'm going to go in, and I tend to freestyle these, so if you're not super comfortable, you can go in and just use simple chalk to draw your outline. I'll get this going a little bit. Sorry, bear with me. Sometimes you got to get these running a little bit better. There we go. So this is something that I will use on my table as a little decoration. So again, this pen isn't in awesome shape. And you can see sometimes the wax on the vegetables themselves doesn't allow the ink to flow super, super well. That and my pen's almost a little bit dead, but I'll switch over to the Sharpie and then I can just color it in. So here we go. I'll go with my Sharpie. Ah, that's better. Okay. I like to do a little flourish in here because why not, right? Then we can throw in some kind of classic, well, not quite classic, but some little characters that we use for flourishing in calligraphy. Add a little bit more of that vibe on there. So just like we did with the pumpkin, I'm gonna let this dry for a sec and I'm gonna come back and just color in the letters and show you how that's done. So I'm back and I've let this dry for a couple of minutes and now I'm going to do the same thing that I did with our pumpkin. So I'm going to go with the downstrokes and I'm just gonna thicken up these letters a little bit. I'm still using my Sharpie. If my Posca was working, which has a thicker nib, this would go a lot faster. But I'm just going to do it this way. So I'll just thicken up some of these areas here to give the letters a little bit more weight and color them in a little bit. So just as we did with the other one. I'm going to speed this up so you don't have to painfully watch me doing each one. But remember, every downstroke, so everywhere where your pen goes down, just like here, is a thicker line. Move my dot there. And then an upstroke is a thinner line, right? Got it? Great. Awesome, so we're back. So that was just a really quick version of how we do it. Now I'm going to go in with this one and I'm going to do a little bit of shading with my white chalk pen. And the same thing that we did last time is we're going to imagine that there's a light source coming from here and anything on the right-hand side or underneath is going to get a little line under it with the white. Now you can do this with any color. I just like to keep these things a little bit cleaner in terms of color because my table tends to be super, super colorful with a really colorful tablecloth and napkins and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to keep it really clean, and I'm going to keep going right-hand side and underneath. So I'll speed this up for you so you don't have to painfully go through it with me, so you can see how it looks in the end. So here we go, our Give Thanks butternut squash. You can even go in there with some colors and do some other little decorations around there. You know, silver is a nice way to add a few touches. You can add a few little dots to make it shine. That's always fun. A little bit of gold, if you have some gold leaf lying around. I know that sounds strange, but there are amazing things in those craft cupboards. I know many of you have secret stashes that are quite spectacular. These are two really, really fun ways to dress up your Thanksgiving table. So with your, pumpkin name cards or your Give Thanks pumpkins. Squashes, right?
And there you have it. Super, super easy, really cute little favors for your Thanksgiving table. I'm gonna try and style a few things up. Not my forte, but I'm gonna try and do that and show you what they can look like. Really fun. Next week, I'm gonna show you how to do a craft paper table runner, as well as some napkins, if I can get my hands on a few. So hope you can join me. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to write a note in the comments and I'll get back to you. Thanks for coming.